My name is Abby Harvey, and I'm with the BlueGreen Alliance. I'd like to welcome you all to our event. To cover just a little bit of housekeeping, all viewers are currently on mute. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end of the event. You can ask questions via the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There's no need to hold your questions. Feel free to send them throughout the event. We'll be compiling them throughout for the Q&A portion. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Jason Walsh, the Executive Director of the BlueGreen Alliance.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jason Walsh, as Abby said, Executive Director of the BlueGreen Alliance. I'm honored to be here with Representatives Peter DeFazio and Marcy Kaptur, leaders in Congress, fighting for their districts and for the investments America needs in infrastructure, manufacturing, and good jobs. And United Steelworkers International President Tom Conway and Sierra Club Executive Director Michael Brune. And we're excited to also be joined by Jimmy Williams Jr., Executive Vice President of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, the newest partner of the BlueGreen Alliance. America needs economic recovery, legislation now that will deliver real gains for working people and the environment. Today, we are here to urge President Biden and Congress to put manufacturing, infrastructure, and good union jobs at the center of an economic recovery plan. The BlueGreen Alliance is specifically calling for at least $4 trillion of investment to meet the scale of the crises we're facing. Over 10 million Americans are unemployed still, and while vaccines allow us to see the light at the end of this pandemic's tunnel, working people need immediate help. And our country needs a recovery plan that does more than return us to a pre-COVID status quo. Our economy wasn't working for too many Americans, as this crisis has made clear, highlighting how many workers are living paycheck to paycheck, how certain groups of Americans, like people of color, are made vulnerable to shockingly high rates of sickness and death, and how our manufacturing base has been so hollowed out that we have to buy PPE from China to keep our frontline workers alive. We need to build an economy that is stronger, fairer, and cleaner than it was before the pandemic started. This is the kind of agenda everyone can get behind. Recent polling confirms that voters in the Midwest, for example, overwhelmingly support making investments in American manufacturing and infrastructure a critical component of recovery efforts. 86% of those voters said it's important to rebuild and retool American manufacturing to make the products we need here at home, including modernizing our factories to produce less pollution and make more clean technologies. 83% of those voters said it's important that we modernize and repair America's aging infrastructure systems, including transportation, energy, water, and telecommunication systems. BGA's research has found that investing an estimated $2.2 trillion in America's infrastructure has the potential to support and create an additional 14.5 million job years across the US economy at a cumulative $1.66 trillion to GDP over 10 years and reduce greenhouse gas pollution and boost climate resilience. Manufacturing must also be an essential component of the recovery plan, rebuilding and retooling America's manufacturing sector to build today's and tomorrow's clean technologies here at home and make all products in cleaner ways will make US manufacturers more competitive while dramatically reducing pollution. Done right, it will also support and create good union jobs across our nation and combat economic and racial injustice. We don't have time to wait. We need investment at scale in infrastructure, manufacturing, and good paying union jobs, and we need it now. Now I'll turn it over to the chair of the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, Congressman Peter DeFazio from the great state of Oregon. Congressman?
Thanks, Jason. You made a very good, succinct case for why we're gathered here today. And, the message we're sending to the White House, the message we're actually sending is we're with them. Because this is their plan. I just before this conference, I got off this phone with Steve Verchetti, Chief Counsel at the White House, and we were talking a lot about the coming infrastructure package. And how it is going to balance. It is going to deal with climate change, fossil fuel pollution, which inordinately falls on communities of color and low-income areas around the country, and revive American manufacturing with good union jobs. Just earlier this week, I held a hearing in the Water Resources Subcommittee. We talked about one aspect of my plan. $40 billion toward our wastewater deficit. The American Society of Civil Engineers says actually we're $271 billion in deficit over the next 10 years. But the SRF, the Clean Water Revolving Fund, hasn't been reauthorized in many, many years. We've put about $1 billion a year into it. My plan would put in $8 billion a year for 5 years. There was agreement from economists, from the labor, and from a gentleman who runs a factory, EJ Americas, that makes made in the U.S. Components for sewer infrastructure. And the agreed upon number was 23 to 28,000 jobs per billion spent per year. So if we could spend productively that $8 billion a year, which would be leveraged by local monies, we would be creating one heck of a lot of jobs, a couple of 100,000 jobs. And that's just one aspect of the nation's infrastructure that needs rebuilding. The biggest component comes in service transportation, roads, bridges, highways, transit. Transit has a $100 billion backlog to bring it up to a state of good repair. The national highway system itself, 40% of it is degraded to the point where it has to be rebuilt from you just can't resurface it. You have to rebuild it. And then 240,000 bridges on the national highway system need substantial repair replacement. Just think, if we do all this sourcing American, we do already have the strongest Buy American requirements in transportation of any part of the federal government. I only wish we had something that mirrored that over in the Pentagon or elsewhere. But there are loopholes, and I'm going to close those loopholes. We have a couple of predatory Chinese companies, one wholly owned by the Communist Government of China, CRRC, that has people in Richie Neal's district. These people aren't stupid when they place these plants, who are unwrapping things made in China and trying to take over the transit market as goes to rail and to light rail in the United States. In the NDAA a couple of years ago, I got in an amendment to constrain them, but not get them totally out of the market. I'm going to finish the job in this bill. And then there's another BYD. They unwrap and put together some components in Kevin McCarthy's district, a bus company from China. Same thing. We're going to close the component loophole and apply the strictest Buy America requirements to all aspects, everything from basic materials, steel, obviously, concrete, to manufacturing, to highly sophisticated products like transit vehicles are becoming these days. It'll include high tech, and all of that can be sourced in the United States. When we increased the percentage Buy America in the last bill, all of the manufacturers contacted all the transit districts and got them all in an uproar. Like, oh, we can't do this. You're not going to have any more buses or vehicles. I said, no, we can do this. Guess what? We did. And we're going to up that percentage until it's zero coming from foreign sources on a expedited time schedule. So we have a tremendous opportunity here. And if we do this right, this company I mentioned earlier that testified, they're building a plant in Oklahoma. They're expanding a plant in northern Michigan. These are things that will bring back people in the Rust Belt, will bring back good paying jobs. And of course, they're all going to be covered by Davis-Bacon in this legislation and substantially unionized, hopefully all unionized jobs. So I'm thrilled to be here today. We're moving on the surface bill. Hope to have it done in the spring, and that's about it. Jason, thanks.
Congressman, thank you for your comments and your leadership. Our next speaker is the chair of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Energy and Water Development, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur from the great state of Ohio. Congresswoman.
Thank you so very much. I hope I worked that right. Let's see. There we
Yep.
go. Can you hear me? You can. Well, first of all, I'm just very honored to be invited to participate in this BlueGreen Alliance. Many years ago, I remember a congressman from Indiana, Jim Johns, who was very involved in the founding of this alliance. And this week I was reminded of him because a very good person from the Midwest showed me a chart, and on it, it showed that if we don't convert manufacturing wisely, Kokomo, Indiana, which Jim represented, would be the key community hurt if we don't do electric vehicles right, and or hydrogen vehicles. My mind is very open in terms of transitioning the industrial base of the heartland to be cleaner and greener. But we have to do it in a way that creates jobs and not destroys jobs. So I'm just very honored to be with the BlueGreen Alliance, Jason, all of those who are on the line. I see Michael, I see Abby, and obviously the president of the Steelworkers. What a great union you have. I'm old enough to remember when television first came in, and they had this ad of US Steel with this big arm that came down, made in America. And it just made you so proud. And so thank you for this great tradition that we are all a part of. I couldn't be prouder than to be on a panel with Chairman Peter DeFazio. We've been friends for a very long time, and he's been so noble and persevering in his efforts. And his area of Oregon faces different challenges than my own in Ohio, but nonetheless, we both understand what America has lost over the period of our service and the efforts we put forward to restore strength to so many industries and people that have been left behind. And with Joe Biden, I'll tell you, I am so hopeful. I am just so hopeful. He really means it. And I've seen him quoted as saying in the White House, "This is now the House of Labor." And President Conway, I haven't heard a president say that for a very long time. So it's kind of an emotional time for me. My own committee work in energy and water, I will partner with Chairman DeFazio in every way we can to produce great legislation to help this country recover. And we last year had prepared a major section of our bill for stimulus to help infrastructure and domestic manufacturing in the emergency title of that bill. And hopefully, after we're finished with this rescue bill for COVID, we'll be able to get into the infrastructure bill and the recovery bill that I know that Chairman DeFazio and President Biden want so very, very much. And your advice to us is so important, whether it's roads, bridges, ports. Frankly, President Conway, I see you getting into a new form of structural material that inventors are inventing to reuse plastic across this country, making beams that are even stronger than steel, if you can imagine that. And looking at new material science and ways of employing people and transforming the way we build homes in this nation, the way we power them, the way our cities process water and sewer in a way that produces energy rather than uses energy, and provides a very clean emittance to the atmosphere. And so I see a nation really hungry for a new American agenda, and I so much am proud to be a part of it. As part of the Energy and Water Committee, we understand the importance of a manufacturing agenda as a necessary component to retooling our nation. And we know through our Department of Energy work in the field of processing steel, for example, the energy constraints that are on that production. And I look forward to working with you on ways to save money and raise wages through innovation in production in this country. Creating a cleaner economic and energy future requires investments in domestic manufacturing. And I am waiting for the president's proposal on a new either climate bank or green energy bank, reinvestment bank, whatever they want to call it, regionalized, so we can begin to reinvest in the industries that have been offshored and put us in competition with entire state-run political systems, as in China with steel production, which we simply have to offset by being smart here at home and by penalizing imports from places that have no respect for liberty. We have opportunities for research and development that leads to companies that produce goods here at home. And I look for advice on where we can invest further on that score. The Department of Energy and other federal agencies have a key role in preparing our domestic industry to be successful in this new century. And so whether it's a startup solar company, and by the way, the #1 job in America right now is solar installer. We can't get enough of them. 25 years ago, if you said that to me, as much as I tried to help solar production, I wouldn't have believed it. We have electricians now, thousands of new jobs across the country in electrical relating to solar technologies and these developing technologies. They're almost coming on stream faster than we can imagine them. Imagine a solar panel up in space collecting power and then beaming it back here through magnetics. There's all kinds of things that are going on that were unimagined a century ago. And there are new jobs associated with them. So I have a huge worry about our automotive industry. I probably represent the largest automotive platform on the continent. And we simply have to transition this industry in a way that creates jobs where people have lost them and they want to work in the automotive industry. And we're going to need careful transition and financing to make sure we do this the right way. One of the most exciting projects I'm working on is producing hydrogen off of electricity in some of our nuclear plants, because I actually have more faith in hydrogen power in vehicles than I do in electric, but that's just me. You know, maybe science will prove me wrong. But I think we have to work on all fronts to help create new jobs. We have an unbelievable opportunity with Jennifer Granholm from the state of Michigan being the Secretary of Energy. I've actually thought of how do we get this infrastructure bank under our committee or Pete's committee rather than putting it over at the Treasury Department. We're really, I don't want to say a negative word there, but I don't have a lot of confidence in them. I think the BlueGreen Alliance might be able to help us design an infrastructure bank that will be under the proper jurisdiction in the Congress so that we can make investments where we know they're needed. Treasury won't find us for 100 years. So I think with Jennifer Granholm and with Pete Buttigieg, we have to be close to them. We have to be able to present ideas early enough in the process that we can influence the way that financing is done to help the interests that we all have. So I just want to say I'm so proud to see the steelworkers standing next to the Sierra Club because I think working together, this truly is a visionary alliance that can help our country. And it's so needed to seed the future and the new generation of domestic manufacturing for good paying union jobs, made in America jobs that, believe me, my constituents so want. And without it, our politics will continue to radicalize because the American people are seeking something they can't quite get to. And it's our responsibility to provide them the platform for a smooth transition to the future. So I thank you so very, very much. I'd be interested also in the future on your ideas for a conservation corps, a climate corps of younger people that can be involved in projects across this country that will eventually move them into apprenticeships and journeyman positions in many of our unions. I think as we think about a conservation corps and a climate corps, we need to be thinking about the jobs of the future and how we move many of these young people into into the various trades and union jobs where I know they will have the best opportunity to earn a living wage with decent benefits in retirement. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman, for your words and for your partnership. President Conway, I think you got the best possible introduction from the Congresswoman. I won't add anything to that. So take it away.
All right. Well, look, I want to first thank both Chairman DeFazio and Congresswoman Kaptur, both tremendous friends to our union, long-standing relationships we know that we can rely on and trust. And Chairman DeFazio, I particularly appreciate your remarks about CCRC and BYD and the threat that they impose and so unrecognized by so many people, but sort of the insidious nature of how people are coming to sort of steal entire markets. So I think that's crucial in recognizing what we have to do here. From our viewpoint, the country's at a turning point, and we have a climate issue that is just unrecognized. If you don't recognize it, it's just foolishness. We have to deal with it, and our union understands we have to deal with it. We also have a fully decayed infrastructure that is, we have kicked this can down the road time after time after time, because we don't have the political will to face it. And it's just a simple story. If you don't invest in your assets will eventually fail you. And that's where we find ourselves. And so, you know, we're a union that manufactures things. We're the largest manufacturing union in the US, in North America. And we stand ready to do that. We stand ready to supply America and the infrastructure needs that have to take place, in the climate change needs that have to take place. So many of these projects will be interchangeable and will accomplish the same purposes together. And we'll be able to build a transportation system that's clean, that's carbon neutral. We're launching a program with our employers where each of our local unions are going to reach out to their employer and develop an inventory of the products they make that will support the infrastructure rebuild and the retooling that has to go on. And we're going to advise the government on, here's where we make this, and here's what we do, and here's how the administration needs to approach this as you're applying Buy America to these projects going forward. So if we're striding about applying those Buy American standards, and we're serious about an infrastructure and building the supply chain that's lasting for that, that's our path to an economic recovery. That's our path out to long-term growth. It's our path out to reaching out to young people to have jobs, not in a dirty manufacturing setting, but in a clean, high-tech manufacturing, advanced manufacturing setting that's sensitive to cleaning up the climate, that provides good jobs. I mean, if you think about, we can't build a climate program that takes high-paying jobs out of the system and replaces it with mediocre jobs. So lowering the top doesn't make sense at a time when we can't even get a good discussion going about raising the bottom. This is an opportunity to really give people good economic opportunity to find transitions that are honest, that people don't suffer with, that people aren't left behind, and in communities that truly have needed, have suffered for a long time. So look, our progress together is important. Our partnership with the Sierra Club and the environmental community on so many things that we're going to be able to work on hand in hand is crucial. And frankly, finally, we have a government we can speak to, we can talk to. We have a White House and people in there who understand what we're talking about, have been on our side for long times. I'm so pleased to be able to think about having Gina McCarthy in her role and Jennifer Granholm and allies who worked with us on so many common things. So I particularly want to thank both of you, Chairman DeFazio and Marcy, for your work, your help, your friendship, and together we can pull this off, working through Congress, supporting the Biden plan, and we just need to get to work and get this done. We have a tremendous opportunity in front of us. So, Jason, I'd hand it back to you, and I appreciate the time with everyone.
Thank you, Tom. Our final speaker is the Executive Director of the Sierra Club, Mike Brune. Mike?
All right, good morning, everybody. As you just heard, I'm Michael Brune. I'm the Executive Director of the Sierra Club. Let me also thank Chairman DeFazio and Congresswoman Kaptur for both of your leadership and your inspiration, and for joining us on this call. And it's always a pleasure to be working alongside Tom, Conway, and Jason. Here's how we see things at the Sierra Club. We think that the crises that we face, climate change, the pandemic, tremendous job losses, systemic racism, all of these things are interlocked. One reinforces the other. Each one is made worse by the other. And we also see some good news in this. And I know that a lot of us are thirsty, if not parched, for good news these days. And that's that the solutions to climate change in each of these issues are also interlocking. They also reinforce each other. We can help to solve multiple problems with one smart set of solutions. But taking advantage of this opportunity requires both advocacy and policy making that is more broad than it otherwise might be. Meaning that when we rebuild our manufacturing sector and rebuild our crumbling infrastructure and create good union paying jobs in communities across the country, we'll need to do so in ways that will cut climate pollution and alleviate racial injustice. As we invest in a clean energy economy, we need to make sure that the millions of new jobs are high quality, family sustaining, good union jobs, boosting both our economic and our climate resilience. As you've heard on this call, opportunities abound. In every corner of our country, there are opportunities that are just waiting to be seized. These are opportunities that will put building trades and manufacturing workers to work for decades to repair our infrastructure systems with American-made materials and components. We heard Chairman DeFazio outline how simply repairing our wastewater infrastructure will enhance both our water quality and put hundreds of thousands of people to work. Investing in our public lands, similarly, will spur more job creation and increase the access to some of America's natural treasures. And a recovery package can finally begin to address at scale the lead pipe water crisis that communities across the nation, particularly communities of color, have been fighting and have been plagued by for years. So in our view, as President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Congress begin to focus on crafting a recovery package, they and we have to ensure that it is a significant down payment on the pro-worker, equity-driven, climate-centered plan that we need to face the crises that we face, all the while using cleaner American-made materials and components. We can't look at returning to normal as any indication of success. And the time to act clearly is now. So at the Sierra Club, we urge Congress and this administration to build back better and to make sure that we are reducing emissions, creating good paying union jobs and opportunity for all Americans, and in the process to heal the deep racial and economic injustices that too many people are facing in this country every day. Thank you. Jason, back to you.